Good morning, Napa Valley Unitarian Universalists and guests. Welcome to this week's online worship service. I'm Jane Bledsoe, and I'm honored to serve as your celebrant this morning. Our parish minister, the Reverend Lisa Hike, is away today, and I'm pleased to welcome the Reverend Sue Magidson back to our pulpit. Reverend Magidson is a lifelong Jew and UU. She serves as a hospital chaplain at San Leandro Hospital, which is a part of the Alameda County Health, and is a community minister affiliated with the UU Church of Berkeley. We are so glad that you're here. Each week, we gather to connect with each other and to pay attention to both the beauty and the brokenness of our shared earth. We gather to be part of something bigger than ourselves and to explore new relationships and ways of being. Today is the last day of Rosh Hashanah, or the Jewish High Holy Days. Our service will focus on the practice of return, our return to the roots, to each other, to the earth, to God, as we know them. Now is the time to center ourselves through music.
Boker Tov, Bruchim Habaim, Veshana Tova. Good morning, dear people. I am so glad to be together with you today, even remotely. I opened with a Hebrew greeting because today's service honors the Jewish high holidays of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and offers some wisdom that feels particularly relevant to surviving a pandemic and other catastrophes. I'm wearing my Jewish prayer shawl as well as my UU stole because I'm both Jewish and UU. So, Boker Tov, good morning, Bruchim Habaim, welcome. And Shana Tova, Happy New Year, as we welcome in the Jewish New Year of 5781, which began Friday at sundown. To begin our time together, I light our chalice with a Hebrew blessing that Jews chant whenever we do something for the first time. We chant it when we taste the first fruit of the season, first apple or pomegranate or persimmon or pear. We chant it at weddings and baby namings and holidays. The words say, thank you for everything that has happened to bring us to this present moment. Everything. Just think of everything that had to happen for you to be here now. It's a big question. I will chant the traditional Hebrew of the Shechachianu. If you know it, please join me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehehianu v'kihimanu v'higianu lahazman hazeh. Amen.
I invite you now to a moment of receptivity and reflection as we share the joys and sorrows of this community. We make sacred the milestones of our lives when we share them with each other. I have here a bowl of water and some stones. If you would like to share your joy or sorrow with all here, you can type it in the chat. And then, if you'd like, choose a stone to represent your post. If you have a joy or sorrow, or even just a concern that you do not need to share with everyone, you may simply write stone.
May all these joys and sorrows be held in love and care by this congregation. These are hard times, dear people, for many of us in many different ways. And sometimes what helps is pausing, stilling our bodies and spirits as best we can, and sinking into some silence, which is what we're going to do right now. In preparation, I invite you to shake out anything that needs shaking out and brush off anything you want to release and wiggle around and find as comfortable a position as you can, sitting, standing, or even lying down. See what your body wants to do right now. And as you settle in, you might close your eyes or soften your gaze to help you go inward. Notice the parts of your body that are in contact with your chair, couch, cushion, or floor. Notice that gravity is holding you fast to this earth. It will not let you go. And notice that you are breathing, perhaps effortlessly, perhaps with great effort. Breath feels so precious these days, and you are breathing right here, right now. Notice the pattern, in and out, receiving and releasing, receiving oxygen, releasing carbon dioxide. The pattern continues whether we're aware of it or not, as automatically as the tide ebbs and flows back and forth. This is your time to notice your breath, to rest in the silence, perhaps to pray. If you would like a question to consider, I invite you to reflect on what you would like to let go of right now as we enter into a minute of silence.
Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are, born and reborn again. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are, born and reborn again. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are, born and reborn again. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are, born and reborn again. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul.
Our reading this morning is a responsive reading written by Rabbi Jack Riemer for the Jewish high holidays. The words will be on the screen, and Jane and I will alternate reading lines. We invite you to choose the plain text or the italics and read along with us. If you're worshiping with someone else, you can each choose a different part. Now is the time for turning.
The leaves are beginning to turn from green to red and orange.
The birds are beginning to turn and are heading once more toward the south.
The animals are beginning to turn to storing their food for the winter.
For leaves, birds, and animals, turning comes instinctively.
But for us, turning does not come so easily.
It takes an act of will for us to make a turn. It means breaking with old habits.
It means admitting that we have been wrong, and this is never easy.
It means losing faiths. It means starting all over again, and this is always painful.
It means saying, I'm sorry.
It means recognizing that we have the ability to change. These things are hard to do.
But unless we turn, we will be trapped forever in yesterday's ways.
God, help us to turn from callousness to sensitivity, from hostility to love, from pettiness to purpose, from envy to contentment, from carelessness to discipline, from fear to faith.
Turn us around, O God, and bring us back toward you.
Revive our lives as at the beginning.
And turn us toward each other, God, for in isolation there is no life.
The Jewish high holidays of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are my favorite holidays of the year, hands down. I love this opportunity for an annual spiritual house cleaning, a time to reflect, to ask forgiveness and make amends, to let go of what isn't serving me and start afresh. I love gathering with Jewish community, singing, dancing, and praying together, reflecting collectively on where we've fallen short and what we want to change. Now, you need to know that it hasn't always been this way. I've always loved the idea of the Jewish New Year, that it's a time for contemplation rather than big parties. But for me, learning how to observe these holidays with other Jews was really hard. I told you that I'm Jewish and UU. What I didn't tell you is that my two Jewish parents raised me in a UU congregation with hardly any Judaism. Only Hanukkah, which barely counts, and Ashkenazi Jewish food. We were gastronomic Jews. While I always knew I was Jewish, the first time I set foot in a synagogue was, ironically, in UU Sunday School. And the next times were for family funerals and my great aunt's bat mitzvah. The thing is, unlike Hanukkah and Passover, which are celebrated in the home, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are synagogue holidays, times when large numbers of Jews gather together in community for nearly 20 hours over the two holidays combined. Just a little bit intimidating for a newcomer. I was in my 30s the first time I bravely attempted to go to a service. And I walked out in tears because I had no idea what was going on. As a rule, Jewish services don't tend to be terribly user-friendly. More often, they assume that if you're there, you know what's going on. You're lucky to get a page number as the service moves all around the prayer book. And there's no printed music, which meant I couldn't even sing along. As a result, I had a strong visceral experience of being insider and outsider at the same time. I had so badly wanted this to be a religious homecoming. And instead, I felt like a stranger lost in my own home. For reasons I don't entirely understand, I kept coming back, trying different congregations each year. For several years, I walked out in tears. And gradually, I learned. I learned some melodies. I learned some Hebrew. I learned about the different prayers and practices. Eventually, I found congregations that were more user-friendly. And gradually, I fell in love with these holidays, with the music and the rituals and the wisdom. These are such wise holidays. Because I love these holidays, my grief at losing them this year is huge. Yes, we Jews will muddle through as best we can via Zoom, and I'm reminded that Jews throughout the ages have found ways to celebrate holy days, even when legally forbidden from doing so, even in ghettos in Europe, even in concentration camps. A pandemic pales in comparison, and still, it hurts. And so when Lisa invited me to share some High Holidays wisdom with you, I jumped at the opportunity. I started asking myself what from the High Holidays can help all of us, Jew and non-Jew alike, as we navigate this unprecedented time of global stress, fear, and challenge. I kept coming back to a central theme of the holidays. I kept coming back to the R's. The R's? Well, first and foremost, return. Return again and again and again. The Hebrew word is tshuva, and the idea, as we sang and read earlier, is that we can turn or return toward oneness, toward reconnection, toward healing and wholeness. The thing is, as humans, we make mistakes all the time. And the high holidays ask us to admit our mistakes, apologize, make amends where we can, and try again to be our best selves, knowing that we will make new mistakes and need to return again. This is the dance of being human, falling away and trying again. And in Judaism, we have incredibly wise annual communal practices that help us return to our best selves. We blow the shofar, a ram's horn, each morning so that the piercing sound will wake us up, which is why I am not going to blow it for you in my tiny apartment. We have a practice called tashlich, traditionally done this weekend, which I shared with the kids this morning, where we each reflect on what we want to let go of as we begin this year, and we release it into flowing water, which carries it away. The entire month leading up to the new year is a time of looking inward and outward. We look inward, acknowledging our imperfections and brokenness, trying to learn from our mistakes, and striving to do better. We also look outward, reaching out to the people in our lives, those we've hurt, and those with whom we've simply lost touch. We strive to restore right relationship, reconnecting and recommitting to who and what we hold most dear. Can you hear those R words? Restore, reconnect, recommit. And there are other R words at work. Renew, which I know is your theme of the month. Repair, reconcile, remember, re-engage, all part of this process. The prefix re means again, or again and again. These are not things we do once and are done. These are things we need to keep doing throughout our lives. Another word associated with these holidays is repent, though it's a word I tend to avoid since it has such cultural baggage attached to it. The word sin is also problematic, since it's often associated with judgment, guilt, failure, and shame. In Judaism, though, these words take on a different hue. Repentance is the process of returning that I've been talking about. And to sin is simply to miss the mark, to do something that takes us out of right relationship with self, others, or the holy. And so these practices, what I'm calling the R's, are about repairing the damage where we can and bringing us back into right relationship. There's a powerful message underlying these practices, which is that we humans are not perfect. We are not designed to be perfect. In our imperfections, we make mistakes. We hurt one another. This is normal. Judaism doesn't expect us to be perfect. And it doesn't judge or shame or damn us for being imperfect. It does expect us to do the work to repair the damage done by our actions and to strive to do better. This feels like a particularly important message this year because there are so many stresses in our lives, making it even harder to be our best selves. Some of us are painfully isolated. Others can't find a moment of quiet. Some are out of work or fear losing their jobs. Others are working harder than ever while essentially homeschooling their kids. Some have exhausted their financial resources and are struggling to afford food, utilities, a roof over their head. Some of us are struggling to breathe, afraid of getting sick or sick. Some work in jobs that expose them to risk. Many are struggling with mental health issues. There is so much fear, so much grief for the loss of what we thought was normal just 6 months ago, and so much grief for the lives lost. And that's just the pandemic of COVID-19. There's also the pandemic of racism and the uprising against racial injustice and police violence. There's the upcoming election. And most recently, the fires. I expect that for many of you, there's PTSD from the 2017 fire in Napa. PTSD which may have been rekindled just last year when the Kincaid fire came so dangerously close. And there's the choking smoke, keeping many of us inside when we so long to go out. With all of this, it's no wonder our nerves are frayed, our tempers are short. We snap at one another. We may be unkind or even cruel. We can't always rise to the occasion. And so Judaism offers us a roadmap back to our best selves. We're encouraged to think about the people in our lives and to do what we can to heal relationships that need healing. Sometimes it's simply a matter of reaching out to someone with whom we've lost touch. Who do you care about who might appreciate a call or card or email or even a text. Sometimes there are people we know we've hurt by our words, our actions, our inaction. Judaism teaches us to do what we can to restore these broken relationships, to apologize for the harm we've done, to do what we can to make amends, and to work to avoid repeating the harmful words or actions. It's not enough to say we're sorry. There's also doing what we can to repair the damage. This work is the heart of the High Holy Days. And because we don't always know who we've hurt, many Jews will reach out to the people in their lives and apologize for anything they might have done to cause harm. They might even ask if there's anything that needs an apology. During today's stressful times, there may be more apologies, more forgiveness needed than usual. We are not our best selves. We are doing the best we can given the circumstances, but the high stress means that we're more likely to hurt one another and more likely to need to make amends. At my home UU congregation in Berkeley, we have a covenant of right relations that we've used for well over a decade. It includes the sentence, when we hurt one another, we will try to forgive, make amends, and reconnect in the spirit of love. Note that we say when we hurt one another, not if. We know that we will hurt one another. It's part of being human and being in community. We say that we will try to forgive, knowing that forgiveness may be hard. We covenant to try to make amends, knowing that forgiveness is not enough, and also that amends are not always possible. And we try to reconnect in the spirit of love, because that's what it's all about. In that spirit, I want to introduce you to a practice that's part of the Yom Kippur service. On Rosh Hashanah, Jews celebrate the New Year. On Yom Kippur, the solemn day of Atonement, we fast, wear white, and spend a long day together in synagogue, usually. As part of that service, we stand and read aloud pages and pages of sins, places where we missed the mark. Individual sins, communal sins, unintentional sins, sins of omission. We beat our breasts for each sin, some symbolically and some until it hurts. I confess that I used to hate this part of the Yom Kippur service. I'd stand there and think, but I haven't committed this sin or this sin. Why am I confessing to them? And then I learned why we read these sins aloud in unison. We do it because we believe that it's important to say the words out loud rather than simply thinking them. And we say them in unison so as not to humiliate the people who've actually committed these sins. We also read these sins aloud because we believe we each do play some role in these transgressions, whether direct or indirect. We are that deeply interconnected. So I invite you now to join me and Jane in a very much abbreviated version of what you'd experience at a Yom Kippur service. This litany is written by Jewish UU minister Rob Eller Isaacs, and it's in your hymnal, but you don't need a hymnal. I will read a list of transgressions. Your role after every line is to say with Jane, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For remaining silent when a single voice would have made a difference.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time that our fears have made us rigid and inaccessible.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time that we have struck out in anger without just cause.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time that our greed has blinded us to the needs of others.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For the selfishness which sets us apart and alone.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For falling short of the admonitions of the Spirit.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For losing sight of our unity.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For those and for so many acts, both evident and subtle, which have fueled the illusion of separateness.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
The Jewish High Holy Days offer three core practices for this time of year. Teshuvah, returning, turning, which has been the theme of today's service. Tefillah, which is prayer. And tzedakah, which is giving or generosity. This is the time in our service when we practice tzedakah, because this congregation depends entirely upon the generosity of its members and friends. All that we give in time and talent and treasure is what sustains this community and makes it not just a sanctuary for us to return to for spiritual nourishment, but an oasis from which we can go out into the world carrying the waters of life. You can donate by going to the website at nvuu.org and pushing on the donate button. Or send a check to us at NVUU 1625 Salvador Avenue, Napa, California, 94558. Okay, the offering will now be received. Thank you for your many gifts. All that you do and all you give are vital to building the beloved community in our region and beyond.
After the hard work of reflection, regret, repair, and reconnection, Jews turn to joy in the form of the holiday of Sukkot. Our final song, The Trees of the Field, captures that joy. It's not in our hymnal, but it's repetitive and easy to pick up. Singer Annie Patterson will lead us.
You shall go out with joy and be led forth with peace. The mountains and the hills will break forth before you. There'll be shouts of joy, and all the trees of the field will clap their hands. And all the trees of the field will clap their hands. The trees of the field will clap their hands. The trees of the field will clap their hands. And you go out with joy. You shall go out with joy and be led forth with peace. The mountains and the hills will break forth before you. There'll be shouts of joy, and all the trees of the field will clap their hands. And all the trees of the field will clap their hands. The trees of the field will clap their hands. The trees of the field will clap their hands. And you'll go out with joy. You shall go out with joy and be led forth with peace. The mountains and the hills will break forth before you. There'll be shouts of joy, and all the trees of the field will clap their hands. And all the trees of the field will clap their hands. The trees of the field will clap their hands. The trees of the field will clap their hands. And you'll go out with joy.
May we remember this joy, especially when times are hard. May we remember that we can return again and again and again, minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, and year by year, releasing what doesn't serve and embracing what does. May we remember that we do not need to be perfect, that we cannot be perfect, even if we try. When we fall short, may we dust ourselves off and repair what damage we can. May we forgive ourselves and each other. May we begin again and again and again in love. And may we go out with joy. I bless you for a sweet new year. As is the tradition and as you are able, I invite you to dip a slice of apple or piece of challah in honey for a sweet new year. Amen and amen, and blessed be.